I chose to do the show about books, but I don't make all my work about books. Some of the artists do, but I just happened to have a massive reaction myself to one particular book, and that inspired me to make a massive piece of work, which then made me go out and look for other artists that did the same thing. And on my trails I started seeing artists that I quite like, so I decided, since we were here and had the space, I might as well show as many people's work as I could. This work is about losing information. So what you can see is I've shredded the whole book. I don't know if that's going to focus, it isn't. But you can see none of the words match. And then I shredded the whole book and obsessively stuck it all back together. So it's about misunderstanding and not quite getting the information. And just in life. I sent the pieces to the author, I sent photos of them, and he commented on how it was like the sad fate of a textbook, that it no longer, once information used to pour out of it, but no longer does it, is it coherent anymore, which I quite like that as well, because I like the fact that he had a reaction, which was really good, and I'm glad he didn't hate it, because that would have been awful. It was quite a risk, really, to send it to him. But basically, I just wanted it to look very, very obsessive, and about going through information and really, really trying to push it. And every bit of the whole book is in sculpture. You just can't read any of it.
I live here and I live my life. Really? I don't mind it.
Well, we were talking about books, and I had a lot of love letters. So what I wanted to do was it's a sort of a transitionary period in my life. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to bind them and send them away. So this idea of love letters, and I thought that the books looked like birds. So the idea of putting books into a bird cage would give that metaphor of love and birds and freedom and flight. But what happened was that the book started to sort of permutate and take on the stories of the loves in my life, and started to take on their own characters. But I love birds and images of birds, and the idea of putting birds in cages to me just seemed paradoxical. Why tie something up? So this is very much for me about letting go, the opposite of encasing things, rather than them sit in a shoebox under my bed and I pull them out and go,
so
that was the
the opposite
time.
of being sentimental in a way?
Yeah, very much so. I was surprised, especially with this, that some of the things that I had to say, my feelings were actually quite opposite to how I was feeling at the time. The idea of, that knight in white armour and, has turned into a little tin toy and these sort of bits of vertebra that have fallen apart. But I think that's sort of some of the I think there's a lot of things in there I'd like to remember, though. Yeah, very much so.
This started like a few years ago, where I had a sketchbook and I was cutting out rather than drawing, and I was cutting out hands. So rather than drawing with a pencil, I was drawing my left hand with a scalpel. And then the idea really kind of developed when I heard about the idea of submitting for the book exhibition, where I quite liked the idea of something coming out of the book, and so I quite liked the idea of these many hands, and I just kind of played around. I was drawing the hands at first on paper and then making these stencils, and then kind of transferring them into the book, cutting them out of the pages of the book and playing around with them, seeing how they could come out of the book itself.
The shadows that sort of are formed with one hand over another is really, that sort of interplay between positive and negative is really gorgeous. What inspired you with your use of colour and these threads, sort of pulling is there an element of puppetry?
Really, yeah, a little bit, but also it's what kind of manipulates the arms in a way. So also I wanted something that played with the kind of texture and the colour of the pages. I really liked the colour of the grid on the kind of slightly coloured paper.
Yeah.
And so really it was all kind of through experimenting and using kind of old silk threads, which I really liked the colours of, and that had slightly kind of dusty, kind of faded colours. And particularly I like the fact of having several different colours and the fact that they were silk, old silk threads.
It's beautiful, it's so delicate.